And I think part of what was helping us persevere that I say we did have going for us, we both were believers, thank God. So we had similar faith and we had similar values regarding family.
Welcome to the Breakthrough Podcast with your host, Reba Hobbs, a podcast motivated to help survivors of trauma heal and focus on their full potential.
Welcome back to another edition of the Breakthrough Podcast. I am your host, Reba, as you already know. And this podcast should be coming to you guys with me actually coming off break. So me coming off break from my 3-month vacation. I did this podcast while I'm on break, but I'm still on break. And I am having someone special that she's going to introduce herself, but I would like to introduce her a little bit. Her name is Ginger Finney. And I just want you to welcome her, guys. Love on her, pour into her. Leave messages, leave comments, leave questions. She's going to pour into us today just as well. And we're going to find out about her and all that she does. Welcome, Ginger. Welcome. So, of course, this is just a casual conversation between me and you. I know. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
And I know that this is pretty much your first podcast.
Podcast, yes. Podcast.
Okay, that's awesome.
Hopefully many.
That's right. It's gonna be many. So thank you for so much for this. But first, I just want you to tell the people about yourself, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Ginger Finney. I am the founder and CEO of Harmony Marriage Coaching. I am a certified relationship coach now for the past 20 years, and I specialize in helping women of faith honor God and honor their vows and themselves within their marital relationships. I've also been married to my husband, John, for 35 years, and we have 5 young adult kids. So a little bit about me. Yes.
All right. That's perfect. Okay, so tell me how you got started. Whatever you feel. Tell me how you got started and how God led you to this. And
Yes, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, my husband and I have been married for 35 years, but the first 14 years of our marriage was horrendous. We were on a fast track towards divorce, unfortunately. And at that time, I had just given birth to our 5th child, and we were contemplating divorce. I would say, again, the first 14 years of marriage was just super hard. We were young parents when we first got married. We were initially attracted to each other, of course, physically, very much attracted to each other physically. And so we started off with a physical relationship, and then of course we were trying to navigate what marriage looked like God's way. So we both, by the time we got married, I had been a believer since I was a young child. My husband, however, had just come to know the Lord not too long before we got married. Okay. So we were navigating married life, and it was tough, with a house full of kids, struggling financially. It was struggleville, period. And then I would say it was, I believe the year 2003, 2004. I would say leading up to that, I thank God I had women of faith, women of God who are walking with me and praying with me and helping me to, just stay committed to the idea that my marriage could be restored, even when I couldn't see it. But through that mentorship and through some amazing resources that I came across, my husband and I were able to experience an emotional reconciliation in our marriage. So instead of heading to divorce court, we had our marriage turned around and restored. And from that restoration, God had placed in my heart to help other women experience reconciliation in their marriage and just help them in general with their healing journey.
I love that. I love that. The reason why I do love it, and I know you talked about this, but I do love it
Yeah,
because you don't hear about the restoration part of many
yeah,
marriages. I was talking to a friend probably like 3 or 4 months ago, probably the beginning of this year,
yeah,
and him and his wife been married like 10, 11 years. And I told him, I said, I don't care if I have to do it all over again, and over
yeah,
again, right? I
right.
want a right marriage. I don't want a marriage
Yeah,
where, as my listeners know, I am divorced, but I'm married again.
yes,
And I don't want a marriage where, because I'm going through things, that I just be like, oh, we've been married 10 years and then that's it.
right.
And I was trying to
Yeah,
explain to him that that's all great and dandy because on the outside, people looking at, oh, years. And I know
right.
marriages that's been married
Yes,
40, 50 years, but they going
yes,
through
yes.
hell, and it's
Absolutely.
just like, I don't want a marriage like that.
Absolutely.
So I love
Absolutely.
your story and your
Yeah.
testimony because you can honestly actually be honest. And that's what I was telling him. Like,
Yes.
no, people need to hear,
Yeah.
not saying the bad part, like the toxic part or whatever, but people need to hear the real.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about you. You give the real, but at the same time, you could tell people that it is a testimony on the other side. That just because you're
Yes.
married
Hmm.
doesn't mean that everything is grits and glory.
No.
But y'all had a story and a struggle that you had to fight through to get
Yeah, for
to
sure.
the glory, and
Yeah.
that's what I love about it.
Yeah. And also too, I would say those early years, I didn't quite know it at the time,
Mhm.
but there's definitely different seasons of marriage. Those first 14 years of marriage, I like to now describe them as difficult or disappointing seasons of marriage. And it was more about we just didn't have the tools, you know. No one really told us or explained to us how we can get on the other side. I think we
Right,
kind of saw it, but we I don't think we really had the tools to really get there. And it was just so hard. And I now remember and can think about I think we both were fantasizing about how do we end this? You
right,
know, how do we get out of this? Because my husband was miserable, I was miserable. And I think part of what was helping us persevere that I say we did have going for us, we both were believers, thank God. So we had similar faith and we had similar values regarding family. So I'm thankful for that. Those are a couple of things that helped anchor us. Even during those seasons that was really, really hard, we had that to help us.
so you said because of woman. Okay, so back to what you said earlier
Yeah.
about being a woman of God.
Yes.
Okay, so because you're a woman of faith and you're a woman of God,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
We know because we, me growing up in the church and
Yes.
knowing what women of God represent and what they do and
Hmm.
what they fashion themselves go after.
Right.
My question would be to you, what is your recommendation for a woman that's
Hmm.
not really spiritually there yet,
Okay.
you know, but she knows she's married,
Yeah.
she's, having struggles. Maybe her husband is more spiritual, but she's not spiritually there yet. And then she wants
Okay.
to say she wanted to come to you and be like, what do I do to, you know, bring
Right.
like salvage my marriage?
Okay.
What would your
Okay.
advice kind of
Yeah.
be?
Absolutely. So I definitely would likely walk through that woman of God, regardless of where she's at in her journey.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that I walk through or that I did walk through that I would help her see if she can help establish that emotional safety in our
Hmm.
marriage that I think is
Hmm.
so critically important. So, the emotional safety for her, the emotional safety for her husband.
Hmm.
And like what helped my husband and I all those years ago was creating that emotional safety and speaking to those critical love needs. So I would help her with that. So even if her relationship with the Lord wasn't as strong as maybe she would want it to be, or maybe her relationship with God or her husband's relationship with God is not where it would want to be. Just understanding how to meet critical love needs and how to create emotional safety, I think, is foundational.
So, what are some emotional safety standards that you would say you would give?
Yeah, so I think for all of us, we all have our own unique what is safe to us. Like for
Mhm.
some partners it might be like, based on what my background is or what my childhood was like, I can't, maybe a person or wife says, I can't take if someone is verbally loud, and it could make them feel very unsafe. So if someone is yelling or screaming or cursing, that could be boundary breaking
Yes.
for that person. If someone just shuts down, checks out, gives the silent treatment, whatever it is, that might be an example of not creating emotional safety. So I think that in every relationship between a husband and wife, I think it's critical that there's a conversation where the wife says, hey, this is what emotional safety looks like to me.
Hmm.
And for the husband to also say, hey, this is what emotional safety looks like to me. Or a lot of times a husband may say, this is what respect looks like to me. And
That's
when
another
a
word for
husband
emotional safety. Okay.
communicates, yeah,
Okay.
when a
Okay.
husband communicates, this is what respect looks like to me, it's the same, it can be the same thing of him communicating, I feel safe, emotionally safe, or I feel safe when you do this,
Hmm.
or I feel disrespected when you do this. So both husband and wife have to figure out and be able to communicate. One of the things that I believe is hurtful in so many relationships is when, one of the partners doesn't feel safe, and for whatever reason just checks out,
Hmm.
shuts down, stops communicating, or in addition to, there may have been some hurt that was caused, and there could be like this little teeny tiny root of bitterness that starts, and over time that root of bitterness just, goes down into the ground. Right, right.
Builds walls,
Yeah,
plays parts.
yeah. Yes, it goes down into the ground. And as I like to say, it gets that soil, it gets the nutrients, it gets the sunshine, it gets the water, gets the fertilizer. And then the next thing you know, that little bitty root of bitterness has now grown
Hmm.
to like this massive tree trunk of overgrown roots. And it's very difficult when it gets to that stage to pull that up. So, I think sometimes if you are that partner, if you're that spouse where you tend to withdraw or you tend to shut down and you're just like, okay, I'm just going to sweep it underneath the rug. I'm not going to deal with it right now. But unfortunately, if it's not dealt with, that little bitty root has over time can grow into something that's very, very difficult to remove. So I always like to encourage husbands and wives, but especially wives, since that's who I specialize working with, to make
Hmm.
sure you are constantly checking your heart, checking the root system
Yes.
of your heart. Yeah.
I think what you're saying is very valuable. One, because it makes me think about my first marriage
Okay.
and a lot of trauma that I went through in my first marriage.
Right.
And I did carry some on into my second marriage.
Yeah.
Okay. But because I didn't know
Hmm.
so much, I know more now, but
Yes.
because I didn't know so much,
Hmm.
that my childhood trauma showed up a lot in my first
Yes.
marriage.
Yes.
And the only thing, well, this is going to my next question. The only thing
Hmm.
I had to do or I did then, I remember it was just at this point, I just knew I was just a hindrance to myself.
Okay.
I had to take a reality check and was like, girl,
Yeah.
you really messing up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just I was messing up my marriage or whatever, because I played a part, but he played a part too. Let's just be
Sure.
real. But I'm talking about personally for me as a wife,
Yeah.
I took a step back and was like, I need therapy.
Hmm.
And I started going into therapy, and I've been in
Yes.
therapy since or whatever.
Very
And
good.
so my next question will be, what do
Yeah.
you recommend, or do you recommend therapy?
Yeah.
Because I know the day and age we live in or whatever. And I have this thing where you can't
Yeah.
use God, just only God, and you can't use
Yeah.
therapy, just only therapy.
Yeah.
The two got to come together or
Yes.
whatever. But
Yes.
what do you recommend? Like, do you recommend therapy? Sometimes if you say you see
Yeah.
maybe it's some help that you can help a
Sure.
lady, but
Sure.
it's certain levels you can't even hit. Like,
Absolutely.
you might need to go talk to somebody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
I
one
dealt
of
with
the
that trying to client people, you know what I'm saying, being a rock
yes,
client. I'm like, I can't, no, that's
that's
something else
right. That's
I'm
right.
not certified to do. So what do
That's
you
right.
think about that?
Absolutely. So I get to talk to now that I'm in the season of my business, my ministry. I get to talk to hundreds of women now, which is a
Mm-hmm.
blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I do, I kind of feel like as we're having those conversations, I'm asking them questions and I'm finding out. Sometimes there are things that are deep rooted and go all the way back to childhood. There's trauma that has not healed, that there's still raw. And in those situations, I will encourage a wife, hey, it's probably a very good idea for you to go and get therapy. So that clinical counseling, someone who's going to address anxiety, depression, trauma, anything like that, and for them to work with a clinical psychotherapist or a clinical counselor who can go back and help them heal that level of trauma that is still back in their childhood. So that'll usually come out in some of our calls. So if I get on the call, I'll hear that. And sometimes I'll talk to a wife and she may already be in clinical counseling, but
Mm-hmm.
she's really looking for specific tools in how to navigate her particular relationship. She's looking almost like for the cheat code of someone who's been there and paid their dues and
Right.
so that she doesn't have to make the same mistakes or have to spend a gazillion years trying to figure it out. So I like to say that I like to work with wives who are either simultaneously in clinical counseling or they've done their work in clinical counseling. They've addressed a lot of that childhood trauma, and now they're ready to really work on their relationship, work on themselves, and work on their relationship. And I typically find that some of the best experiences and the wives who have the best outcomes, they're the ones who are not afraid to say, you know what, let me use this season to heal me and work on me. So, whether that's emotional healing, mental healing, spiritual healing, healing, period. Because when the wife, when she works on healing herself, she can then take that more healed version of herself into all of her relationships, not just her marriage, but that as a mom and that relationship as a daughter, that relationship with any and everyone she touches, because she's a much more healed and healthy
Mm-hmm.
version of herself. Yeah.
I think it was a key point of what you said about women that
Yeah.
we need, first of all, many more, and of course, I'm a part of your group, but
Yeah.
many more women need someone like you because I think you said the healed version of yourself wants to basically, you're basically explaining the healed version want to come out, right? And
Yes.
you want this help, whether it's the fast track or it's
Yes.
going to be slower, but you
Yes.
want this help. And I
Yes.
think a lot of times in our marriages as wives and as women,
Mhm. Yeah.
we got so much on our plates,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So we're mothers, we're wives, we're women, we're coaches, we're lovers, we're friends, we're
Yeah.
best friends, we got all these titles, but
Yes.
we don't even know how to help ourselves
Mhm.
mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? And so sometimes we need that push or that gumption
Yes.
or that
Yeah.
that somebody say, okay, girl,
Yeah.
it's something wrong. One
Yeah.
is integrity to basically say it is something wrong. But
Mhm.
two, not that it's just something wrong in this moment, but something that could be fixable. Because I think we forget about
Yeah.
that part. We and I know I do it. I do it all the time. We beat ourselves down
Yeah.
where it's just like I just want to fix everything about me. Want to fix everything.
Yeah.
And like you just said,
Yeah.
some things are a sprint, some things are a marathon. Because
Yeah.
some things are rooted and embedded in us
Mhm.
that it might take years to come out. And
Yeah.
I even noticed, like I said, in my marriage, I did things that's coming out or whatever that I had to heal from. Things
Yeah.
that, in the beginning, I'm just like, oh, Lord, I thought I healed from this.
Yeah.
That it wasn't healed from. I thought I healed from it, truthfully, in my first marriage.
Sure.
And it came out in my second. And I was
Sure.
like, I thought I wasn't that woman no more.
Yeah.
you know, so that
Yeah.
part, I think that's very important what you said, key point, because we want to get that help because a lot of women don't know where to go to
Right.
get that help. You get what I'm
Right.
saying? So
And I also always want to encourage you, like Reba, I've talked to you
mhm.
about giving yourself grace.
Yeah.
That's just one thing, not just for you, but for many women, beat ourselves up and, we're just like, well, why can't I? Or why did I do that? And I think it's just so important as women of God or just women, period, that we have to give ourselves grace and understand that we're constantly evolving and we're constantly changing and that God is with us every step of the way. So he gives us grace. And
Hmm.
so therefore we can remember to give ourselves grace. And the journey is going to be different, but to me, it's still what I would consider a more fast tracked pace as long as you're
Right.
saying, I am going to show up for me. I'm going to show up for myself first and foremost. I'm going to get the help that I need along the way. I'm not alone in this. There's someone out there who cares about me. There's a big, big God who loves me
Hmm.
abundantly beyond anything that I could imagine, and I can get the support that I need. So just even that, to me, that right there is even the fast track of, it's a faster track than saying I'm stuck.
Mm.
I'm going to stay here. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to make a move, or this is my lot in life, or I can't do
It is
anything about
that it is what it is
it.
mentality.
Yeah, yeah.
This
So
how I am.
this is how I am. This is how my husband is. This is our situation, and it ain't ever going to change. So, anytime we are saying, I'm willing to raise my hand and say, God, choose me. I will be that person. I choose to heal. I may not be able to control my husband. I may not be able to
Right.
control his healing, but God, you can use me. I choose to heal. I choose to follow you and I choose to run after you with all of my heart. And so, anytime a wife or anytime any of us raises our hand and says, God, me, I will go there with you because I know I'm not alone because you're going to be with me. So,
Yes.
that always will beat that decision of, or even the indecision of saying, I'm just going to sit right here and do nothing.
I think also too, I got another question, but I think also too what you was talking about is
Yeah.
you have to make the determination that it's about you and only about you. I
First and
think
foremost,
we make it
absolutely.
about other people,
Yes.
right? Your
Yes.
healing
Yes. Yes.
journey is
Right.
about you, not
Yep. It
someone
starts
else.
with you.
Rather I heal for this marriage, or I heal for a friendship, or I heal
Yes.
for a broken mother. And my listeners know me and my mother has a broken relationship. They
Yeah.
know broken mother daughter relationship because I think that plays a big part too. And I want to piggyback off that
Sure.
real quick. But my next question would be talking about the four seasons. Okay, so I have this thing, this podcast, this series on my podcast. I talk about seasons of friendships, right?
Okay. Yes.
And every time I talk about seasons of friendships, people get on their toes, but it be my biggest podcast that people listen to. There is a winter, a fall, a spring, and I break down all that in a summer of friendships. But I also think, I think you said this earlier, there's a season like that in marriage, right?
Woo.
So,
Honey. Yes.
so what I do is I correlate summer and to the fall, to the winter and stuff like that, and
Okay.
how sometimes we make people our
Yeah.
friends, family
Mhm.
members. Well, family members is kind of a little different in the seasons, but it could be
Okay.
a season you're in, right? But
Sure.
sometimes I talked about how we made family. We actually deal with spouses too. Let's be real. Let's state that fact too.
Yeah.
We made spouses for eternity. Don't
Mhm.
get me wrong, God ordains all marriages, but we kind of made these spouses eternity that are supposed to be our eternity. And
Right.
so now that we're in it or
Yeah.
whatever, God maybe sent somebody, a friend or a family member, I mean, a friend or a spouse that's supposed to be in our life just for that season for you to help, right? And I
Mhm.
talk about this part of people, I step on people's toes. And you said I do to them, and you supposed to been helping them. And it's like now you in this thing, and they may not been your purpose partner or your purpose friend or that person that's
Yeah.
supposed to be in your life to connect on
Right.
this road with you, but now
Right.
you're here. It's not to
Yes.
say, oh, dump them to the side because
Right.
God didn't say that to
Yeah.
you, that's because it happens in marriages all the time. And we actually have a little consensus of asking spouses, did God really tell you to marry that person, he or she?
Yeah.
I probably it's be a higher percentage no, I married that person out of emotion. You know what I'm saying? But once you're together, God ordains it to go
Covenant.
down that path because
Covenant.
that word.
That
The
that
covenant, not contract, the
that
covenant
that
that you
covenant.
both entered with him
Yeah.
first and then together.
Absolutely. 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 Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
So
wanted
what
to talk about that first, about
about the covenant? The
about the
covenant.
covenant going with the seasons, because I think those two meshed. The only reason why I say that is because a lot of people will go back and say, but I didn't supposed to marry this person in the first place.
Okay. Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I do believe that's, that's a little tricky because I know people
It
feel
is.
that way. But I also feel that a lot of people, even after they got married. So
Hmm.
let's say if my husband and I at the time, we didn't pray down heaven and get this, 100% confirmation that we were
Exactly.
supposed to marry
Right,
each
right,
other,
right, right.
right? Like many of us, that's not our story. But at the same time, once we entered into that covenant relationship, then it's about, can we find God in this marriage? And I will
Mm,
say, in the first 14 years of our marriage, we had a difficult time finding God. We had a difficult
hmm.
time because our flesh was so on fire in the negative sense. Our flesh was
Hmm.
leading and guiding and directing our decisions, how we responded to each other, how we forgave or didn't forgive each other. And so when we're in the faith, my desire, or our desire, is for us both as husband and wife to run after one another, but to run after one another as we first run after Christ,
Right.
run after God. That's the desire. That is
That part.
the ultimate, is ideally both husband and wife are running after God. We're running after Christ. We are like, God, I want to honor you in everything. That's how we desire it to be. But
Hmm.
it's not always like that. For one, you may have a spouse, you might be the one who is running after God and pursuing
Hmm.
God with your whole heart. And maybe your spouse isn't, or maybe spiritually they may be like a babe in Christ and they're just
Right.
not there yet. And so, what could happen is a spouse could, get frustrated, get impatient, and want to like tap out.
Right.
you know,
That's
just like as if you're in that wrestling match and you're like, you're tapping out, like I'm done, or somebody's
hmm.
saying, I'm done. This is too hard. I didn't sign up for this. I did not think that this was what marriage was going to be. And so my whole thing is, I'm never going to be the person to tell any wife or spouse that God says leave your marriage, or
Exactly.
that you've got to go. There's going to be some situations where, if you are in a toxic or abusive relationship, I'm
Right.
always going to tell you, you go ahead and step to the side, let God handle that. You don't need to ever put yourself in
Yes.
harm's way. But that decision to actually leave your marriage or in your marriage, that is between you and the Lord Jesus Christ. That's your decision. My job, and any other person who God has called to walk alongside you, we're going to lead you towards your own personal healing journey. And where there can be restoration between you and your spouse, then praise be to God, we're going to help you do that. But Reba, as you know,
Hmm.
through our program and through our wives coaching group, we also talk about how God's given everyone a free will. And so we can't make that decision for our spouse that they are going to pursue God, love God, run after
All
Him, and
right.
cover us the way God would desire our spouse to do so. We only have control over ourselves. We only have control over our own response to what God is calling us to do. So that's what we're responsible for. Everything else, I believe that as women of God, we are to cultivate that inner peace, cultivate that inner
Hmm.
joy, cultivate that healing, and then let that be the influence in our marriages and see what God's going to do. Yeah.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. So, again,
Yes.
when you're in the season, though, the
Yes.
seasons, right? The winter season.
Oh, baby. Yeah. Let's, woo. Winter season.
It ain't looking good.
No,
It ain't looking like, because
no,
you got a lot of marriages that's putting on
sure.
the side through social media. Let's be real,
Yeah,
and they in their winter season,
sure.
and they like spring ain't coming fast enough.
Right.
Talk about the patients both, because I think we could talk about from a women's point of view or whatever, which that's the only thing we could talk about, the patients that you need to have or
Sure.
can have, because I'm sure that, okay, perfect example, I'm sure that you didn't think this 14-year thing,
Yeah.
it's a testimony now, right?
Right. Right.
But I'm sure you didn't think in year one it was gonna last 14 years.
No.
I'm sure about yes, because they got that, what they say, that 7-year itch. you know. So I'm
Right.
sure you didn't think by year 7 it was like, okay, when is gonna be over?
Well,
Cause a
well,
sister girl, right? A sister girl
well.
ready to come on the other side. And so,
Yeah. And I would probably, go even a little bit further.
mm,
So in after year 14, when we had experienced an emotional reconciliation of our marriage, I think I kind of alluded to that towards the beginning, that
mm,
that probably had more to do with difficult seasons or disappointing seasons. When our marriage was restored, we had not
mm,
entered what I would call a emotionally destructive season. That
yes,
actually came many, many years later.
okay,
And I think because of the healing work that God was doing in my life, the healing work that God was doing in me, I was so much well prepared to weather that emotionally destructive season that could have taken me out, should have taken me out, but God. I got to know Him on such a deeper, more intimate way that
mm,
actually brought beyond just this, I don't want to say surface level of healing, but it
mm,
was a deeper level of
mm,
healing that I got to experience.
okay,
So, my winter season, I would equate that to be an emotionally destructive season of marriage that could have and should have taken me out,
mm,
but had it not been for the Lord. And I'm thankful for it. It I have to say I wasn't thankful for it at the time,
for sure.
but I am thankful for it that I got to go through that because it fortified my love for God like nothing has before. And one of the things that I would, kind of share is all those years ago when I experienced that emotionally restored season, and my husband and I, we were going around, we were doing marriage conferences.
Mm,
I was giving my testimony, giving our testimony about how God had restored our marriage, and He just had restored, or we got to experience an emotionally restored season. But then I remember it was another brother in Christ had walked up to me, and he had been through a season that I had not yet encountered. And so he had asked me this question. He said, And because this was when we were talking about how amazing love languages were,
Right, right,
how
right.
amazing love, learning your partner's love needs. Because
Mhm.
I thought at that time, like, oh my gosh, we had finally, found the holy grail. This is it. We are now in the promised land, child. 14 years. We have found the promised land. But this brother in Christ, one evening after we had shared our testimony all those years ago, he had said to me, he's like, sis, so what do you do when you know your partner's love language and your partner knows your love language, but for
Mhm.
whatever reason, they choose not to speak it and you choose not to speak theirs, then what? And I just remember, because remember, I had just entered the promised land with my
Mhm.
marriage, and he asked me that, and I was like, "So what you talk about, Willis?" It was like one of those moments, like, "What are you
Right.
talking about?" Because I I was in bliss. I
Yes.
was in marital bliss. I
Right.
had finally got to the other side, and what he was describing, I had no idea what he was talking about. But fast forward many, many, many years later,
Mhm.
I entered into that wilderness season that he was talking about, that winter season that you're
Wait,
referring
here
to,
it
that
is. What he was talking
emotionally
about. This
destructive
what he was talking
season. Yeah, that emotionally destructive season years later.
about. Mhm.
And I was like, wow, what is this? Wow, God, what is this? I thought we had finally arrived. I thought we were beyond this. But that winter season for us was beyond difficult. That
Mm.
winter season for us was beyond disappointing. That winter season for us was absolutely emotionally skull crushing,
Mm.
destructive.
Okay.
And I would liken it to, we were kind of talking before the early parts about what happens to a root of bitterness
Right.
left unchecked,
Right.
right? And so what happens is, if we give, and the scripture says, let us not give a foothold to the enemy. Because when we give a foothold to the enemy and
Yes,
we don't
baby.
check that, that
Mhm.
thing can grow, that
You say
thing
I'm
can
here.
start to invite, spiritual warfare. And so when I think about what is a winter season, I think and I equate it to an emotionally destructive season.
Mhm.
I equate that to spiritual warfare that
Mhm.
is ruling and reigning and pouring all over the place. And
Mhm.
you're like, God, what is this? So that's my definition of a winter season. And I'm here as a living testimony and proof that if any wife or any person finds themselves in an emotionally destructive season or winter season, warfare, that God is able to bring you through it. Absolutely, he can, because he did it for me, and he's not a respecter of persons. So I believe he can do it for any of us, as long as we are seeking him, we are running after him, we are trusting him with everything in us, that no matter what our spouse may choose to
That's
do,
right.
no matter what our spouse chooses not to do, our Heavenly Father is there with us every step of the way, and He will cover us, He will protect us, and He will allow us to walk through that difficult, I should say more specifically, that destructive winter season.
I
Yes,
love that. I love that. Of
yes,
course, good. So everybody go through it. Or everybody's going to go through it. And you might even go through it a couple of times or whatever
sure,
throughout the years. Because I can't believe somebody be married 50 years and they're just like, oh, we just went through it. I think it becomes
yeah,
easier though. I think the fight with a marriage is that it's two people fighting, but y'all not fighting each other. Y'all start fighting, like you just said, the spiritual warfare.
yeah,
We're both fighting, even though we might not be at, what I'm saying, eye to
yeah,
eye, and we button heads. We're
sure,
still in our separate corners, healing one, two,
yes,
but we spiritually fighting on each other behalf and saying, yes, I may be hurt because there are some hurts, in marriages, so whatever. I
sure,
may be hurt by he, she, what she or he
yeah,
did, but at the
right,
same time, I'm spiritually fighting that I know that God will hold this together and we'll have a testimony on the other end,
Yeah.
because you want someone that you want to fight with and not fight against. And you want to feel like you're
Yes.
fighting with someone. Like, we got this. I know, babe, we in this, but you know,
Yeah.
we're gonna come out on the other side. Even if you got that little mustard seed and you really
Yeah.
don't see it, like,
Yes.
man, I
Yeah.
just want to divorce you right now. But okay, that's what you
Yeah.
said. Okay, you know what I'm saying? And it has to be also, it also comes with wisdom. It comes
Yes.
with wisdom of knowing where God has placed you and why He's placed you in this. Because sometimes we place ourselves in seasons, but God allows us to go through seasons to strengthen us. Sometimes God allows
1000%.
us to go through seasons
Yeah.
in our marriages to
Yes.
strengthen our character. And I tell people this all the
Yes.
time. I have a lot of single friends, a lot. And I
Sure.
always say this. And you know, it be like, I love that they want to get married, but I be like, ugh, don't rush it. Like, it be my other side, and I think they be looking at me like, I ain't girl, you supposed to be telling us about marriage. And I
Yeah.
be like, because I went through so much in both my marriages, that
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, I need you to know you first. Do you
Yes.
seriously want to be married? One, and then because some people just want to get married just to say they're married, and I see that
Which is
all the
true.
time, just to say I
Which
do because I got somebody. Like, that
This
is
is
not what
true.
God designed it for. Because when it's time to fight, are you gonna go fight? Or you gonna be like, oh my God, I didn't know it was gonna be all this. I give up. You know,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
see that a lot. I see that a lot.
Absolutely.
And be like, really, what you get married for, or what you want to get married for? So what I usually ask my single friends, why do you truly want to get married?
Right.
Even if they don't have nobody, because most of them don't have somebody specifically,
Sure.
specifically in their lives.
Mhm.
Why? And I listen for the answer, because is it because what I always say, and I still stick to it, marriage is the, I tell my son is 17.
Yeah.
Marriage is the main thing that's gonna bring the ugliest out of you. You think that your spouse is this beautiful person
Yep.
inside and out. They the best thing since sliced bread. You supposed to think that. Yes, they are. They
Yep.
sure are.
Right.
But I promise you, the most beautiful person on the inside is gonna turn ugly once you get married.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
say that in a nice way, not in a bad way to scare people, but I say that in a nice way to say, yeah, marriage supposed to do that part. People think marriage don't supposed to do that. But if you're in a marriage where y'all both not speaking the
Oh
truth
yeah.
about who you are
Yeah.
individually, somebody lying. And I say that to my audience. Somebody lying,
Yeah.
because somebody holding in something, because they just want to go with the flow and they just want to agree just to not have an argument. Maybe they
Mhm.
had childhood trauma where they see arguments all the time. So
Right.
now they don't want to say nothing to bring dysfunction or whatever. And sometimes you need that, not dysfunction, but you need that decisiveness to say, okay, how do we fight together? That's a healthy way of fighting in a marriage, and that's an unhealthy way of
Yeah.
fighting in a marriage.
Yeah.
Can me and my spouse come together and talk about these things and be like, you know what, I disagree with you, but at the end of the day, it's not gonna stop this, it's not gonna stop that. Where can we meet in the middle ground? Stuff
Yeah.
like that. I tell people this, all my single friends, all the time. No, it's gonna bring out the ugliest part that you ain't never seen before. Will you
Yeah.
be willing to sit there and stay
Right.
and say, I can fight through this, or I'm just gonna walk away?
Right.
You know, and like, you go back to you what you said earlier. Everybody got free will, but it has to be two people fighting.
Yeah. Well, it it should be two people fighting
Hmm.
towards a marriage, and it should be two people fighting to try to keep the marriage. But
Hmm.
if we're keeping it real, it's not always like that. Sometimes
Nope.
it's just one person
Yep.
that is fighting for the marriage, and sometimes it's just one person who's just hanging in there or just holding on.
Yep.
Or maybe they just want to keep up the appearance, but they're not really willing to fight. I always, kind of tell people before they're thinking about marriage, it's like you have to get comfortable with dying
Man,
to your flesh.
say it again.
You have to
That
be
flesh gonna show up.
comfortable
Every
um,
time.
killing and crucifying your
Yes.
flesh,
Yes.
because likely you are going to attract someone. Your partner, your mate, is likely going to be very different from you. They're going to receive love very different from you. They're going to express love very different from you. They're going to have a different way of communicating, different conflict resolution styles. You've got one person who may want to talk it out. You've got the other person who wants to shut down and withdraw. And so it's unlikely in many cases that you're going to find someone or attract someone that's just like you.
Exactly.
So when you're in a marriage, you have to be prepared that to figure out how to navigate, how you're going to do this dance of, I'm with someone who communicates different than I do. I'm with someone who, how they feel about conflict resolutions that's different from mine. I'm with someone who came from has a different childhood than mine, different experiences. And
Yep.
so all these things are opportunities to help you grow, opportunities to help you become a better version
Yeah.
of you. Are also opportunities that can break the relationship if you don't know how to navigate those differences in a healthy way, for sure. Yeah.
That part.
Yeah.
Well, how can we find you? Because I thank you for, Lord, we could be on here all day, okay?
Yeah.
Because it's so much more. I feel like it
Scratching
really
the
is.
surface.
It is. It's
Yeah.
so much more. And I love this because that me being married, and this is my second time being married, and I'm going through on my own stuff in my marriage and my second marriage or whatever. And I'm still doing healing on myself in my second marriage,
Yes.
right? It's so much that
Mhm.
I would love to like have a conversation again, but of course we can have a conversation again. But it's so much I
Yes.
want people to understand about marriage and
Right.
that why it doesn't look the way you think it's supposed to look.
Right.
Because
Right.
at the end of the day, like I was reading Ephesians this morning, and of course, Ephesians talks about husband loving the wives, wives loving the husbands.
Yes.
And he talks about love doing like Christ loved the church. And it's like,
Yes.
that's a wait, first of all, husband got a mighty, mighty, mighty calling because
Yeah.
you gonna love me like Christ loved the church. That means
Woo,
that man
baby.
died.
Yeah. Give me
That's
that.
a powerful calling. Okay,
Come
you gonna
on
be like
now.
that.
Come
You know
on
what
now.
I'm
We
saying? But
definitely
that's
want
how God
but it
wanted
is
us
a
to
strong,
be.
it's a strong calling.
It is
Yeah.
a strong calling, and I
Responsibility.
don't think we think about that. You know what I'm saying? And then
Yeah.
it's also like, he said, love you like you love yourself. Do you hate yourself? Because if you hate yourself, then you're gonna hate the
That's
person.
exactly right.
That
That's
is a
exactly
very,
right.
very, very, very true scripture
Yeah.
thing because I
Yeah.
realize I've been in relationships where the man really didn't like himself, and then I'm like, oh, so he don't like himself. That's why he don't like me either. What am I so about?
That right there is definitely a
That's a
whole
real
message
thing.
and a whole word right there, because yeah, if you are struggling to love yourself, if you don't love yourself, if you don't feel that you're worthy, you're going to have a very difficult, if not nearly impossible responsibility or impossible job loving another person, loving your spouse, loving your wife. That's why I say it's so important that every person does their individual healing work. Because when
Mhm.
you do your individual healing work, then you can show up and love somebody else
Yes,
properly. And you can also receive someone else's love
I
properly, because
agree.
there are some healed people out here and they're ready to give that healed loving to somebody, but you have to be a healed vessel to receive that love, right? So whether you're giving that love or whether you're receiving it, it all comes back to, are you healing? Are you taking responsibility for your own healing journey? That will make so much of an amazing difference, for sure.
I love that. I love that. How can we contact you and get to know
Yeah.
you more? And if
Yeah.
somebody want to sign up for your coaching and everything else,
Yes.
let us know.
Absolutely. So you can go to my website, harmonymarriagecoaching.com, And there you can book a free discovery call with me, and I will talk to you about some different ways we can work together, whether one on one, a small group environment, community, or all the above. So I'm happy to serve in any way that I can.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for all the wisdom that you imparted on this podcast. We will be having you back again because it's more. It's
Oh,
more.
yeah,
And
there's
as
more.
things get revealed and as things come up and come out, we'll bring you back because
Thank you.
like I said earlier, we need more of this. We need more people like you that say, I went through the hard storms, but I
Yeah.
came out on the other side.
Came out on
And
the
let me
other
let you
side.
know
Thank you,
what I
Jesus.
did.
Right.
Exactly. Thank
Absolutely.
you, Jesus.
Jesus.
You are
Absolutely.
a testimony for so many women. And I just hope you know that. I
Thank you
hope
so
you know
much.
that. Of
And Reba,
course, of
thank
course.
you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And I appreciate continuing just to have the privilege and the honor to walk along your healing journey and what God is doing
Yes,
in you. And thank you for inviting me here today.
of
Really appreciate
course.
you. Thank you.
Well, I will text, I will, guys, I will be back next week.
Okay.
Okay, next
Okay.
week, but it probably won't be next week. But I'll be back next week with the next podcast. It'll be me and my son. So we're going to talk about his journey on him going into stepping into his last year. Y'all know my baby is 17, so I'm overprotective, and I love him. He my first. But talking about his journey and him stepping into college, going into his senior year, things he's doing for college, and things that we did over the summertime to try to pretty much he's stepping into another season and getting to know who he is as a young
Amen.
man and going off to college. So I just thank you for listening to the podcast today on the Breakthrough Coach. And I will see you guys back next week. Bye.